This. So there he is. Hey, Carlos.
How's the summer in Norway?
It's the first day you can you can wear shorts in Norway.
Nice.
So yeah, sorry about the delay. This is the first time I've ever done a Telegram video call, conference, whatever you want to call it. So this is going to be a new experience for me.
Beautiful.
See how it plays out. So thanks for joining.
Awesome. Thank you.
This is a long time coming. It's been quite a while since we've been working together. So it's about time we had one of these AMAs so we can talk a little bit about what we've been doing together, and you can talk more about DEGA, and we can kind of do a bit of a deep dive around that and have a discussion about the ISPO.
Yeah, we've been coming, with the creative process around what DEGA is and what it can be for a long time, right? Like, and you and I started talking when I was still part of IOHK back in the day. So we're going to finally, let it out of the box.
Can you hear me okay?
Yep, I hear you loud and clear.
All right, super. Great, so then let's just kick it off. We'll do the sort of normal question to sort of get a little bit of context, and then we'll take it a bit deeper, and hopefully we can kind of dive into more specifics around DEGA. And along the way, if people have questions, then we can field some of those questions and see if we can't get those questions answered as well. So to start out with, you can sort of introduce yourself and kind of background in this typical introductions. Then I'll sort of talk a little bit about the context on how we met. Or actually, you can do that. You can make the introduction about how we met and how it's evolved.
Sure thing. So, first off, the most relevant thing is how long I've been in blockchain. Been in the industry for over 5.5 years now. Dove into it around 2017, back in the ICO craze. And what got me, excited about this technology was the possibility of having sovereign money, or let's say money that's independent from state, that can be created by anybody. Right, and not only that, it can be programmed, it can be configured to do things automatically. So that was very impressive. I had the pleasure of working with IOHK, leading their sidechains program for about a year. And with my team, with the DEGA team, we've had a software development studio. We've done everything from deploying new layer ones, sidechains, cross-chain DEXs, NFT marketplaces, you name it, and we've probably done it already. So, we've been around the block a little bit. And before blockchain, I used to work on the enterprise world, automation. I did work with IBM Watson for Latin America, Wells Fargo Bank, with pharmaceuticals, and some government agencies. But yeah, very, very much focused now, 100% in DEGA, what we're doing, what we're bringing to the table to the industry. In short, we provide blockchain gaming infrastructure, like deploying layer 2s as a service and being able to just access all of it in a very simple way. Our dream is to be able to empower billions of people around the world to be able to project their creativity through the digital economy. And we're starting off with gaming just because the gamer nation is digitally native. You don't have to preach to them that something digital has value. They get it. And because we believe that we're heading towards a gamification of everything, right? Which is something, you and I like to go up about these ideas of how to integrate NFTs into business models and a whole bunch of stuff like that. In regards to how we met, well,
Yeah, I go into how we met. That's probably starting point.
Yeah. I don't know why, but you reached out to me in LinkedIn. You just introduced yourself. I'm Ken, CEO of MELD. I had heard of MELD. You guys were all the rage back then because the biggest ISPO ever. So I was like, sure, let's talk, let's have a conversation, right? And then as you were explaining what you were doing, you mentioned one of the other companies you founded, which was Sekai. And you mentioned it's a metaverse company, and I was like, oh, okay, metaverse. Yeah, I see. You know, we can have some synergies there. I have a concept; it's still not done, and let's talk in a month, right? And then after that, I gave you the pitch for DEGA. I remember you were a little bit, you know, excited about it, to say the least.
Yeah, very much
I
so.
got
Very much so.
I messed up your productivity for like 3 days with that. And then we just went over the presentations, the design, the concept of the brand, and you were, instrumental in getting me through that first part because my background is engineering and product, not so much brand and design. So your support was key there. And we kicked it off around March, I believe, in Dubai when I was introduced to James Bowater and started making other connections as well. So that's kind of like how this whole journey started.
Yeah, and then on the other side of it, when we started looking at possibly working on EVM blockchains, because part of what Carlos was doing at IOG was working on EVM side chains. And so it made sense to have a conversation with him, and we sort of piqued his interest in regards to being able to do similar to what we're planning on Cardano to do that in the EVM world. And so we had long conversations over a very long period of time, and it sort of culminated in workshops on how to take the MELD vision onto the EVM side of things. What makes sense? What doesn't make sense? Where's the optimal place to go? How to approach it? Do we build our own blockchain? What do we do? And so it's been kind of this back and forth between, me talking with you about DEGA and you talking with me about MELD. And it's kind of come to this. And then if we sort of lead into it very briefly around the ISPO, then kind of you wanted to kind of take the ISPO to a new level. And we sort of have been having a conversation around that. But so let's we've got the sort of context now. I think what is most important is to find out the specifics about DEGA. What is its value proposition, both from a technical perspective, but also from an end customer perspective? Where is the value that you're bringing? Where is the value that people are going to see in the end result?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, happy to do so. So first off is, as you know, I always say that blockchain technology for emerging market is kind of like exponential, right? In terms of the benefit it brings. For people in the USA and in Europe, it's great, it's good as well, but it's not so significant as it is for us, right? There's no Wall Street of Latin America. There's no, massive banking system that gives you access to credit, capital. It's far harder for us to get something as silly as $7,000, right? So there's still too many barriers to entries, right, for that, right? And right now, if I always say that, it's really embarrassing sometimes when somebody actually comes and tells you, dude, I'm so excited about crypto. How do I get started, right? And then the first thing you say is like, I need you to go and get a piece of paper because you're going to write 24 words there. If you lose that, you're screwed, right? It's so embarrassing to do that. So everything from UX to performance, right, needs to be improved. So if you go and you do a simple send transaction right now in many blockchains, it's like, several dollars. And when people get excited and we're doing NFT sales or a new token launch, we grind blockchains to a halt, right? And this happens across the industry, right? It's not even one particular blockchain, it happens across the board. So there's so many improvements that need to be built there. And me and my team have experience on scaling cloud architecture systems, right? Which weirdly enough is something that it seems a lot of our colleagues in the industry do not know how to do. So there's a whole bunch of system designs that were invented for the cloud, right? The cloud was the first one to face such a challenge, like how do I make a digital system that concurrently handles millions of people? So some of those designs we're bringing now into Web3, and what enabled that is the CK Snarks technology, right? That allows you to have layer 2s and even layer 3s in the future. So we're kind of like, DEGA, the value proposition is to be kind of like the AWS of blockchain, right? In the sense of, instead of you having to go and learn how to set up all of these complicated data centers and scalability models, you just go to AWS and you say, give me a SQL database cluster, give me a MongoDB cluster, give me a scalable web application, right? And then it just does it for you. And you just focus on your business and your application, which is where you provide value as a, as a builder. So that's what we're going to be doing for blockchain, right? You don't need to worry about whether you're using EVM, Cosm, Wasm, whatever it is. You're just gonna come and you're gonna say, well, I need to work with Cardano, I need to work with Ethereum, I need to work with Polygon. Here it is. Here's your own layer 2 if you need it, your own layer 3 if you need it. It can scale elastically, provisioning new databases on the fly, and collapsing them. It allows you to build from any programming language, right? So our API is a normal web API, just like tapping into Gmail. So that means that you don't need to learn Solidity, Haskell, or whatever it is that the sexy language, new language is. So that's kind of why we're doing it, right? Is to empower people in emerging markets, and how we're doing it is building these tools that allow anybody to join the Web3 movement.
So if I'm coming to you as a person with an idea or a builder or something, what am I coming to you for? Or what am I first coming to you for? And then how does that sort of expand? Am I coming to you when I have a layer 2 already built and designed and prepped, and then I want to do stuff on it? Am I coming to you when I have an idea for a layer 2 or a layer 1? Can you help in regards to a layer 1? If I want, for example, if I want to build a sort of web-enabled, or not a web, but a Web3-enabled game on ZK Sync, do I come to you then after I've built the game or before I've built the game? In my sort of process of creating things, when do I talk to you, or when do I need or want to work with DEGA?
Great question. So I always tell people that technology doesn't need to rest, right? You can have software running 24/7. It doesn't need to sleep. But people do, right? So we want to focus, and that's why we're starting off with gaming. Because I get a lot the question, a lot of, why are you doing gaming? Why don't you do also finance and this and that? I'm like, guys, sure, like the technology's there, it's open source. Our system will integrate whatever you're doing. The APIs will work if you want to use it for a non-gaming use case. But we as a company need to be focused on that, right? So that's just one thing. And then the other thing is, in terms of where you would come to us, like ideally before you're building your system, right? Because you need to pick, as you're doing your application layer, you need to pick what are going to be your APIs, right? Just like you need to pick what's going to be your database for your non-blockchain stuff. So that's when you would, come to DEGA. You would see the documentation. Right now, we're still on the phase in which you need to talk to us to get this done, but it's going to be fully productized, right? It's going to be a productized offering. So you don't need to talk to a human. You just go and you see the documentation, you see the tutorials, you say, well, I'm in, give me, my layer 2. Or if you say, well, no, I want to deploy on an existing chain, say you want to deploy on top of CK Sync or on top of Polygon, the MELD subnet, then you can just pick it and say, well, deploy this NFT mint there, right? And we'll handle the rest, right? We don't want you to think about, because right now you think that your question arises from a very technical view, right? You're saying, do I need to pick the blockchain first and then come to you? Or do I need to, choose what ecosystem? And we're kind of like on an angle, we're saying like, that shouldn't really matter, right? Like in your mind, you shouldn't need to think about, am I deploying on this sidechain or on that layer 1 or whatnot? You just say, well, I want to target the MELD people, so I'm going to go to their subnet. And you just think about it more from a community and an audience perspective than from a technical perspective. Just like right now, as a user, you go and you open Gmail You're not thinking, am I connecting to the Gmail servers in Norway, right? In your case, or in my case, in Costa Rica, you couldn't care less, right?
Yeah.
So that's exactly what we want to make you feel when you come into blockchain. Like, just, I want to target the Ethereum people. Okay, pick and say, I want to target Ethereum, layer 2, boom, 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 boom. It gets deployed and you're ready to go. You're focusing on business, not on technical decisions.
So would you say that your customers or the people that are going to interact with DEGA, are they developers? Are they builders?
So mostly right now where we are, it would be builders, right? It would be developers, right? But a very important thing that we want to make sure that we communicate is that besides the API offering from a developer perspective, we're also integrating the entire system with a large language model that can learn the API. And now you're going to be able to just talk to it and ask what you want, right? I would say that there's different type of builders, right? There's some builders that are going to code and some builders that are just going to use things that are out there, right? In software, we usually divide them and we say infrastructure as a service, which is AWS. Then we have developer platform as a service, which is where you have like Azure, for example. They do both. Both of them do both, but they're a little bit more known for that. And then you have software as a service, right? So some people are going to come in each different one of those. Like, for example, if we've deployed, let's say, an NFT white label marketplace, right? And that's deployed on the MELD subnet. Well, now you can use it, right? As an end user, now you can mint there. You don't need to code your own. You can just use that one. But somebody might want to have their own for different purposes because they're going to configure it differently. So it's at those three levels, right? The first two are developer levels, infrastructure and developer platform as a service. The last one, software as a service, is more of a consumer level.
Then tell me a little bit, so to get a better picture of the whole thing, tell me a little bit more about how the DEGA token works in relationship to all this.
That's a great question. So right now, funny enough, some of the layer twos out there are not actually using their tokens for anything, despite their popularity. But for DEGA, we're definitely keen on allowing our community to capture the value of the technology that we're building. So, for example, right, we're taking the concept that Ethereum implemented with their deflationary model, right? Like every time you do a transaction fee in Ethereum, the supply goes lower, which distributes the value for the rest of them. But what we're doing is we're taking that concept and applying it at every application level module that we're building. For example, imagine that when you traded on OpenSea, those secondary market fees went to burn Ethereum. Imagine that when you're swapping on Uniswap, the swap fees that the DEX has, imagine that those would go to burn Ethereum, right? So you basically would capture the value not only of the block fees, but also the application level utility you're providing. And that's what we're doing at DEGA. So the DEGA token will capture the value across multiple layer twos and across multiple modules that we're deploying.
So are you saying that in some way the DEGA token, because it's working across your infrastructure, it's taking the place of the value of other tokens like Uni or ETH or something like that?
It's more like we're combining their use cases, right, within our ecosystem, right, and with all the utilities that we deploy. So, for example, even if we have, let's say, CK Sync, to mention another example, right? Let's say that we have a DEX there deployed because one of our clients wanted one there. So now a fraction of those fees are going to go to the DEGA token holders as well, right? Via the deflationary mechanism, right? So it's more about, it's independent, right? It's modular. So each module can or be on a DEGA meta chain, right? On a layer two, or it can be in an existing ecosystem, but regardless, it's still going to capture value for the DEGA holders in that sense.
I'm still sort of a bit lost in regards to how you use the DEGA token. So if let's say your example of a DEX on ZK Sync, ZK Sync doesn't have a token. They'll probably have one in the future, but they don't now. They use ETH as their gas token. So you use ETH in the same way in ZK Sync as you would in sort of the regular layer one. So if I was going to deploy, you said that some of the value of that transaction goes to the DEGA token holder, but is the token itself used on ZK Sync? And if it is, then how? And if not, and you're saying some of the value goes to the DEGA token holder, how does it go to the DEGA token holder? Is it in the sense that the person who deployed the infrastructure for that DEX, they deployed it using the DEGA token, and therefore they got some of the value out of it?
Yeah, no, I get what you're saying, and yes. So, for example, in that, let's continue with the same example, and then I'll give another one, right? So, Texas all have like a fee, right? So they have like a 0.01% fee.
1, 3,
So
5, whatever. Yeah.
exactly. So in this case, we can just list DEGA, right, as a token on that DEX per se, right? And every time you swap, let's say you swapped, you know, the ETH for USDT, right? So the fee, let's say, so you took 0.1% of ETH, let's say. And now that ETH, what it's going to do is going to go to a smart contract. And then the smart contract is just going to automatically buy DEGA and burn it, right? Instead of accumulating the fees, right, for the DEX, right, in a multi-sig or something, which is what some DEXs do, it's just going to go automatically buy and burn DEGA, right? So it's going to keep creating that deflationary pressure from the fees accrued from that DEX, right? And that's on that system. For the layer twos that are native,
infrastructure costs. So the infrastructure itself, the sort of cost involved in it is creating a mechanic that deflates the DEGA token.
Correct.
Okay, I see. And so they're getting access to this DEGA token through the DEX or through some other sort of mechanic, through some other trading mechanic, right? And so it's the actual, when you're talking about the fee, we're not talking about the LP fee. We're talking about the DEX fee itself, right? The money that Uniswap makes, or the money that the actual infrastructure deployer makes. So that fee is then going, but then the person is forgoing that fee and burning the DEGA token, so they're not earning anything from it.
Yeah, it depends on you know, the use case, right? Some people, what they want to do is just use it as a service, right? Because you could look at it like that, right? In the sense that they might want a DEX to be able to do swaps within their in-game currencies, right? So that's what they want, right? Their money is in their game. They want to charge subscription fees for the game. They don't care about the DEX. It's just a service, right? So that's why, you know, it could be looked at as a service fee in that sense. Right? Now, if your business is to have a DEX, that's different, right, than to use a DEX.
Sure. So one way or another, to use the infrastructure, you pay for it in DEGA tokens, which are then burned.
Correct.
Yeah. Okay. And that creates a deflation mechanic around it.
Correct. Right.
So then in regards to the token, I'm guessing that, does the token live in some kind of layer 0 environment? Or does the token live natively across all the chains that you're supporting and all the L2s that you're supporting?
Yeah, so it would be what you would normally call a layer 0 component, right? We call it the meta layer, just because there's some nuances in the engineering that I don't want to go into, but it would be conventionally called the layer 0 module. So those modules coordinate the DEGA across multiple ecosystems, right? That's what allows us to be able to be a Cardano native token on Cardano, a ERC20 on Ethereum, and a native currency in our own layer 2s, right? So for the layer 2s, the gas token, the layer 2s built with DEGA, the gas token is DEGA. And we're also obviously including, and then we're also obviously including some of, because we implemented a concept called meta transaction, which allows you to pay fees with our partners' tokens, right? So for example, in the Cornucopias layer 2, Copy is also a prime citizen in that layer 2, as well as DEGA and ADA itself. So, but yes, at the end of the day, you know, all of these services that we're providing, as you said it well, one way or another, the fees go to deflate DEGA tokens, right? So that's what that's how we gain value across multiple ecosystems.
So, but the DEGA token will be kind of the equivalent of a native token on all these blockchains. In other words, the DEGA token will also be a CNT, it will also be ERC20, an ARC20, a BEP20, whatever, right? So it has a kind of special, if I understand you correctly, it has a special relationship in the sense that it operates on its own kind of layer, and at the same, which is kind of the infrastructure layer, but it also operates as the kind of the gas token on infrastructure, like core infrastructure, foundation infrastructure that you deploy, like layer twos, and it operates as native tokens on all these other blockchains. So it kind of, it's a kind of a unified token model, where not only does it exist across multiple blockchains, but it lives in this, like you said, this meta layer for this infrastructure that either is deployed or can be deployed.
Correct. That is a very good assessment. Yes. Yes, and obviously, you know, if there's more activity in one chain than in another chain, then what that'll open up the opportunities for arbitrage, right? So our community can actually be benefiting from saying, oh, you know, there's less data now on Cardano, so I'm gonna, you know, swap it from the Ethereum side to the Cardano side, and then now they can, you know, profit out of that, right? So our community can handle that as well.
So would you say that the mechanic for deflating DEGA is connected to technical activity or infrastructure activity, or would you say that it's connected to economic activity? So as economic activity goes up, the mechanic for deflating or for burning DEGA increases, or as the infrastructure demand goes up, the deflationary burning happens?
I would say that, you know, infrastructure demand would be a subsection of generally economic activity, right? But I do get what you're saying in terms of like, basically, is it dependent on the volume of capital coming in, or is it dependent on the amount of activity happening, right? The true answer is that it depends on both, but the one that I see that will probably have the biggest impact is the volume of capital, right? Because, you know, we've seen those monster transactions happening on some of these protocols in which somebody does one transaction and they move $1 billion, right? So from the gas fees perspective, you only charge for the same, you know, block space. You didn't benefit from that massive amount of value being moved or being traded. But since we're connected at the application layer, right, with the white label DEXs, you would profit on a percentage basis, right? And you've had to make an insane amount of block transactions to just take that 0.1% out of $1 billion trade. The amount of block transactions that you would have to do to consume that same amount of data would be insane. So that's where we see that we have a great advantage over, for example, the model that Ethereum has, right? Which is not a criticism to them at all, right? They just set out to do a different thing. So yeah, so I believe that the economic side of things is where, you know, the DEGA people will actually benefit a lot.
Okay, so more on the economic activity because it's connected to the value of DEGA, and the value of DEGA, because it swaps out, the value of DEGA will determine how much is actually being burned through that process.
Yeah, because it's a percentage fee, right? And versus the block transaction fees are not percentage fees. They're just, you know, this is the space and this is what it costs now based on demand. So,
Right.
and also, you know, I think it's a little bit annoying for the end user to, because you have right now a discrepancy, right? Like if you're an Ethereum holder, you want those gas fees to go up, right? You really do. For example, when there was the
No, I don't.
land sale.
No, I don't.
Huh? No, if you're a holder,
I don't want gas fees to go up. I hate gas fees.
No, I do too. But like if you're an Ethereum whale, right, you're already rich, right? And the more Ethereum is deflated, the best it is for you, for your holdings, right? So
Okay,
for
in that sense of
example,
the burn mechanic, yeah.
yeah, I mean, like to give you an example, right? When there was the land sale for the Bored Ape Judge Club from Unilabs, there was they made like $300 million, but they also caused the burning of $100 million worth of Ethereum, right? So that's massive. That's like placing a massive buy order in the market, right?
Yeah.
So a lot of the Ethereum people were happy. Like I was seeing them like, wow, look at all the Ethereum getting burned and so forth. But it was a horrible experience for the end users, like just absolutely horrible. A lot of people paid $2,000 to mint those NFTs.
I know.
And could not mint them, right? So,
so I guess
so
then,
there's a discrepancy there. Yeah, just wanted to make the point that there's a discrepancy that some people want those fees to go up, but it's a terrible experience which limits the growth of your ecosystem. So what we're doing is like, we don't need the gas fees to go up because we're still benefiting from the secondary market trading of the NFTs and the swaps and all the other modules that we're providing.
So in that context, does DEGA have a sort of an optimal solution to create kind of a balance between this idea of, wanting to have more economic activity because of this massive amount of traffic, and then, burning of DEGA, and the sort of the bad experience you have when it comes to getting this massive level of congestion inside the blockchain?
Yeah, because on our side, again, since we are deploying multiple layer twos across multiple ecosystems like Ethereum, Cardano, Polkadot, and others, we don't, it's not an incentive for us to try to push the gas fees up, right? We want to be in as many ecosystems as possible. That way we capture as many of this economic activity as possible, right? Which is where we believe the real money is, right? So to give you an example, right, at the peak of the NFT craze, there was about $3 billion worth of volume in OpenSea alone. Even if we count all of the other marketplaces, it was around $6 billion per month, right? So if we start taking, percentages of that, again, the amount of block fees you would have to do to be able to consume that same economic activity, just purely paying transaction fees, would be absurd. You'd need to have Facebook running on your blockchain. So that's why we believe that this is the best balance. We're allowing for both scalability while still benefiting from the economic activity and the value proposition that the DEGA token holders are interested in.
So if I want to build layer 2, or I want to build a game or build something on Ethereum using DEGA, I can do this, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So then if I'm building this on Ethereum, which we all know has high gas fees, or if I'm building it on Cardano, which has fixed fees, or I'm building it on MELD, which has very, very cheap gas fees, is the gas fees going to affect the amount of DEGA that is burned?
The fees of the underlying chain, you mean? The underlying layer 1? Okay. What it would affect is the speed or the frequency in which we would commit to that layer 1, right? Which is the thing that gives you the underlying security, right? So for example, you need to commit zero knowledge proof to that layer. So for example, on MELD subnet, it wouldn't be a problem at all. On Cardano, it wouldn't be that big of an issue, I think, either. But on Ethereum, it would be an issue in the sense that we wouldn't be able to commit like every mint, right? So maybe something like every 10, every 20, and the more expensive it would get, the farther we would have to push out the commitment to that layer 1, right? This does not affect the functioning of the system. It would still function perfectly well. It's just that some other system might be waiting for that commitment to happen before they confirm something, right? So let's say I'm moving from, let's say, the DEGA L2 in Ethereum, and then I want to move to mainnet to do something on mainnet. So the farther we're pushing out that commitment, the more you got to wait for that. It will happen, right? And in the worst case scenario, we can just enable a mechanism in which you say, screw it. I want this committed now. I'll pay the gas fee. Boom, and then you push it, right?
Okay,
and that's
so
kind of
the difference. Yeah, you sort of adjust based on whatever the costs are going to be, or the characteristics of the blockchain, in order to maintain the level of efficiency for it.
Exactly.
There is no kind of inherent problems or extra costs to deploying it on Ethereum versus deploying it on Cardano versus deploying it on something else. They're kind of evened it out in the way that you've thought about it.
Correct.
So I think that's a pretty good sort of analogy now. This, if you want to build something on any of these blockchains, you can use DEGA to build it, whether it's a layer 2 or it's a dApp or something like that. The benefit is you're able to use this DEGA token across all different environments, all different blockchains, including your own meta chain. And it comes with a lot of really benefits for more quickly being able to build and deploy and operate your system. And for everybody who holds the DEGA token, they are benefiting because if it's built on the meta chain, then you're able to use DEGA as the gas token. And there's constantly this deflationary pressure connected to all the economic activity across all the chains, right? So you're benefiting as a DEGA token holder, you're benefiting across all the different chains for all the different economic activity.
Exactly.
Okay. So
that's a great summary.
One of the things that we talked about a lot that I've been very excited about is NFTs. And sort of the thinking that you in particular have had around NFTs and what roles they play and how they work and what you're planning on doing with them in regards to DEGA. Can you talk a little bit about your sort of thinking around NFTs? Because I think that's very interesting, and I think a lot of people would like to hear it.
Awesome. So yeah, so back when we were starting our conversations around designing systems, the NFTs are a key part of gaming, right? So I was like, you know what, why are we leaving them only on the application layer? Let's include them in the infrastructure layer. And then when I started to think about it, it actually solved a lot of issues that many of the systems out there are trying to deal with, which is stuff like, for example, right, like if you misbehave on Ethereum, they slash you, so you lose money, right? Cardano doesn't slash you, right? But it also opens up the door to other potential issues, right? In the sense that somebody can repeatedly be attacking the network if they have, enough stake to do that. So what we said is like, well, what if we create a new dimension? Like, for example, not losing money, but also losing something, right? So that you don't keep attacking.
Sorry, losing
so
what?
Well, losing something, which is reputation, right? So
okay.
So the way DEGA validators will work on this layer 0 modules is that to be a validator there, you'll need that what we call the DNFT, right? DEGA NFT, and you'll lock in DEGA there, right? So you have both components. And now, as you validate the network, your reputation will increase. The more reputable you are, the more other nodes are going to be connected with you. And then if you misbehave, then you get punished on a reputation basis, right? And then people stop connecting to you. So that way you can't keep attacking the network. But you never lost money in case you did it by accident, right? In case you misconfigured something. And this has happened, for example, on Ethereum. A lot of people have misconfigured their system, and boom, they just lost 10%, 20% of their stake. So we want to avoid them losing money, but you still got to protect people from the attacks. So that's kind of like the value that we're going to be doing there. And then our partners in their games can take these attributes and include them in the gameplay, right? In the sense that reputation the reputation has an effect in the gameplay. So we're gonna be creating some minor games, right? We're not a gaming studio, right? We're a infrastructure company, but we are going to create in some gameplay as well, so that people can actually start experimenting with these mechanics, right? So your NFT is your avatar in the digital world, but not just an image perspective, but in the perspective that it literally carries your reputation with you based on what you provided to your community.
So taking it back a little bit, so these node operators that have to have DEGA and they have to have the DNFT. These node operators, are these node operators specific to a blockchain? Are these node operators specific to DEGA? And if they're specific to DEGA, does that mean that them being node operators, they're going to be operating and providing this infrastructure for all the different applications that are built with DEGA?
Yeah, that's a great question. So they're definitely going to be DEGA validators, right, in the layer 0 aspect of it, in the meta layer. But they can provide infrastructure to run some of these L2s, right? For the moment being, to be clear for everybody out there, layer 2s right now are still centralized, right? They have a centralized prover. But there are designs and there is work being done to decentralize these systems. So in the future, you can set yourself up just like similar.
Can you hear me, Carlos?
Yep, I hear you.
I think we were kicked out for some reason.
Ha. Somebody didn't like what we were saying.
Clearly. Or we sort of went over our time limit or something.
Yeah, so I was just
so we're
saying,
talking about nodes.
yeah, your question about the node operators. So number one, yes, they're DEGA node operators. That's what we're talking about now. They can also run other layer twos, obviously, and then that'll allow them to provide their services to people that don't want to, handle all of that, right? Like setting up a distributed infrastructure, it's a whole project in and of itself. So if I'm a game dev and I do want decentralization, but I don't want to handle it myself, I can just delegate that to the DEGA community, and now their validators can be my validators as well. So that system will be in place, but there's still some effort to be done there in general, not only from DEGA side, like in general, there needs to be some work around the possibility to decentralize layer twos right now. So yeah, that's coming.
So if I want to be a DEGA validator, if I want to run Node, you're basically saying that I can run a core infrastructure node, and then if there are projects that are built on DEGA that I like, that I want to buy into, that I think are interesting, I can also choose to use my nodes to validate them.
Yes. You would use,
And
let's say you would use the same credentials, let's say, right? Like the same reputation that validates you as somebody that has been acting accordingly in the data ecosystem. That's kind of like what you would leverage. On a purely node perspective, you would spin off a new node, like it's a new server in that sense, connected to the same identification of your NFT.
Okay.
But and why would you do it? Well, the incentives are off to that project to offer, right? Like they can mint their own token for as a reward. They might give you their own NFTs, or they might straight up just pay you, like say, well, we're going to be giving, I don't know, $5,000 to every node that supports us. We only need 5. Let's get rolling, right? So the projects will incentivize that on their side. If those projects also use DEGA as a native token, then we can also structure incentives around DEGA as well, right? So we'll build that new mechanisms for people that want to continue building with DEGA as a native token on their own projects.
So we've covered the basics of what DEGA is and what the token, and then what the token is. Roadmap wise, where do you stand? What are the plans? What has been created so far? What are you currently working on? When do you see the sort of next big milestones for the deployment of DEGA?
So right now we're in private beta integrations. We've been working with the Cornucopias team for about, I don't know, 7 months right now, maybe 8 months. They helped us design the API because basically we were coming to them, guys, this is what we can do. They would say, well, this other thing is really important for us. So we were getting kind of like product market fit feedback on the spot. And right now, the number one thing that I want to point everybody to is our ISPO, which is starting on June 19th. This Monday, we're also going to start to reveal the entire economics around that in terms of how many DEGA tokens you're getting per ADA delegated, what's the cap in terms of stake pools, and all of the details, right? And then after we do the ISPO in Cardano, we're actually bringing this mechanism to other ecosystems as well, because we want to see this, everybody being able to leverage this great idea. And then also building out, we're going to be deploying the testnet soon, like in a few weeks. So you'll be able to join our private beta and start testing out our API in just a matter of a few weeks.
So when you say that you can join the private beta, does that mean I can start deploying infrastructure?
Yeah, you can start deploying. First off, we'll leave the blockchain deployment last, but you can start integrating with the rest of the modules in our API. But yes, we'll also allow you to do that, right? So you'll be able to deploy testnet infrastructure, right? Because it's about, right now we're in that phase, right? That's why it's a private beta. It's a private testnet beta, right?
Yeah.
And then by the end of the ISPO, which will be in December, around either November, December, depending on the amount of stake we get, then by that time we'll be ready for production, because that's our target right now.
So when are you planning to have a token generation event for the DEGA token?
That would be 2024 Q1, probably March,
Q1.
right? Just because we want to be very well prepared for that launch. We believe that DEGA, with this mechanic of capturing value across multiple layer 2s, is absolutely a better design than what Arbitrum did. And look at their success, right? So we believe that we need to do things right. Obviously, it's not a matter of just having the right technology or the right product, right? There's a whole bunch of things involved: marketing, relationships with exchanges, etc. So we could deploy now, but obviously that wouldn't be a good idea. So that's why.
So you used Arbitrum as an example. Does this mean you're going to have an airdrop?
We're going to do a better version of an airdrop, right? So, for example, just to mention, first off, the ISPO, you'll get a bonus for holding the tokens of our partners, right? So everybody delegating to us that holds MELD, that holds Copy, will get a bonus DEGA percentage there. And then there's a few more surprises on that, but I won't drop them here. But other than that, there's also going to be airdrops based on content creation, right? And working with us to push DEGA on social media. Join us in our Telegram and our Discord so that you can see how that will happen. But yes, and we call this mechanism play your way, right? In the sense that we come from a play to earn, right? Or pay to win or pay to play. And we're like, it's all about, all of those systems tend to cause friction for the actual enjoyment of people in their games or in their communities. So we're saying play your way, in the sense that you can join and you can do it however you want. Oh, you want to work for it? You want to create content during DEGA and participate in the DEGA games? That's fine. If you just say, well, I don't want to do that, I just want to stake and delegate, that's also fine. And if you want to do both, welcome, right? So that's why we call it play your way.
Okay, gotcha. So when it comes to the ISPO, why did you choose to go the ISPO way? And I think probably the most exciting part of this is, you've kind of taken a different approach, a much kind of bigger picture approach to the ISPO than just on Cardano. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, and this is also a good segue, because I saw somebody asking in the questions of, what are the benefits of our partnership and our relationship, right? So almost immediately when we're talking about DEGA, on your side as well, you were like, well, we need to use ISPOs to fund, right, the next generation of startups, right? So it's a great mechanism to be able to do as a fair launch as possible, right? Because you allow people to come in over the course of time instead of FOMOing them into an all or nothing bet on one day. So that's kind of like the advantage for an ISPO, right? Like you really do give enough time for people to join and be a part of it. That's one thing. The other thing is that it's particularly a great model for emerging markets where we don't have access to capital and credit locally, but and there's also the issue of trust when there's people from the other side of the world, right? So someone from Taiwan is not going to send $100,000 to somebody in Nicaragua, even if they do like their work. So the ISPO kind of allows them to support that person and see their progress over time to continue to do so, right? So that's what makes ISPOs great, right? Community building, fair launch, less trust necessary, and it's ideal for a global world. Now, what we're doing in terms of a bigger picture is that, again, we're implementing this across multiple ecosystems, right? So it's funny that you go outside of Cardano, nobody knows what an ISPO is, like literally nobody. So if you're 100% Ethereum guy, you don't know what an ISPO is. If you're 100% a Polkadot guy, you don't know what it is. So that means that they're not taking advantage of a mechanism that would help them grow their communities and in general help creators, right? Because we sometimes think that people are or exist for technology, and that's not the case, right? Technology exists for people. So I want to help people out, right? Regardless of whether they're Cardano, Ethereum, or wherever they are. So that's why we're taking it multi-ecosystem. And then besides that, we're also in conversations with cornucopias to design this in a way that it can also be looked at not as a mechanism to raise funds to bootstrap project, but also as a mechanism to provide a constant revenue flow. How so? Right now in crypto, you can't do subscriptions, right? Because people cannot debit your wallet automatically. And this is a problem that everybody in the industry has wanted to solve for years. So with an ISPO, if you think about it, I am doing a subscription. I'm putting in capital on your stake pool, and now I'm giving you a predetermined amount of payment, right, in ADA. So we can calculate that. We know how much you're going to get, right? So now you can say, well, this service that I provide, right, that may or may not even be blockchain. Like it doesn't even have to be a blockchain service, but you can say, well, I'm going to give you this service if you delegate X amount of ADA to me, right? And now that's just a constant revenue flow, right? And for games, we can take this to the next level, right? Like we can do gamification on top of this based on how much you've delegated for how long. And instead of charging subscriptions from your credit cards or needing you to spend your money, now you can just keep your money and still take part in games with this new subscription model.
That's a nice idea. I like that. I like that sort of evolution. Sort of you can keep your asset, but it'll give you access to various different types of applications if they sort of allow for it. That's kind of a cool idea.
Yep.
So in the short term, over the next 12 months, what are you most excited about in regards to what you imagine people are going to build with DEGA? I mean, you said you're focusing on games. So what's your thinking around games? What should people be sort of super fired up and excited about to see in the next 12 months coming out that has been enabled by DEGA?
So, obviously the technological part itself is, for me at least, very exciting, but I would understand why some users would be, saying that like, oh, okay, it's just another blockchain.
Like normal people. Like
but
what's going to fire?
Yeah, for normal people. So we're bringing on board some of the most interesting companies here in the region. I can't say the name, but I can tell you, for example, one of the companies that we're having a meeting today with, they actually designed avatars for FIFA, right? And for several other AAA games. And they want to get into Web3, and they want to allow people to be able to build like the most realistic 3D avatars possible and truly own them, right? Because there's some services out there offering right now the creation of avatars, but they're under licensing that basically you don't own your avatar, right? So why would you build a brand, a personality around multiple games, focus on an avatar that you don't own, right? So with these guys, it's about that. And we're also in conversations with a company that does persistent, large metaverse worlds and of the highest quality, right? Like, don't think Decentraland, right? Think more about like Unreal Engine 5 level persistent metaverse worlds, right? I was genuinely impressed with their technology. So we're in conversations with them as well. And we hope to be able to do demos of their technology within the coming weeks, actually, not even months. And DEGA will be the infrastructure, the blockchain infrastructure running those underlying economics, let's say, right?
Okay. So largely the sort of the metaverse space is what we're talking about, right?
Yeah, about high-end metaverse experiences. Obviously, Cornucopias is also building on Unreal Engine 5.
Yeah, yeah.
Right? They started that at the beginning, so yeah, also excited to see what they're putting out in the coming months with us as well.
So in the gaming world, you effectively have kind of three spaces. You've got the regular gaming world, you've got the sort of VR or virtual world, augmented world, and then you've got mobile. Metaverse is kind of somewhere between the regular gaming and the VR world. Are you doing anything, or is there sort of any kind of thought, or can you talk a little bit about how DEGA plays out in the mobile world?
So for mobile, yeah, we're in conversations right now with two companies that do multi-party computation technology, because with them we're going to be implementing what we call the DAO protocol, which allows you to still remain self-custodian and owner of your assets, but we want to remove this 24 word passphrase thing, right? Like I really hate that experience. Like, and I'm part of this industry, and I deeply hate that experience. So we want to make it easy for consumers to onboard, right? So in the mobile world, that's where we'll live, right? We'll provide that technology. We'll provide a app where you can use that, but it'll be open. So, for example, you guys could integrate it on your MELD wallet as well, and other companies may do so as well. And everything that we're providing, again, in terms of using our blockchain systems and APIs, you'll be able to do from a chat interface, right? So if it's accessible via chat, that means that with a $40 smartphone, you can access it, right? So that's
Talk a
basically
little
the
bit
two
more about
things that
that.
we're
What do you
growing.
mean? What do you mean it's accessible via chat? What does that mean?
Basically, for example, you could say, right now, if you want to mint an NFT, you go, download your crypto wallet, right? And then you got to go to adapt and everything. Here, we're saying you're just going to be / mint NFT. Okay, what's the image? It can be a picture, or you can already have it, or you can even plug in a generative AI system and say, hey, give me, Midjourney, give me this image. Boom, boom, boom. I like it. Yeah, okay, mint it. So that's what we're talking about, right? Being able to create things from a simple chat conversation in these chatbots.
So is that the case for kind of the end user experience, or is that also the case for builders?
They can leverage both, right? So in coding, we use a lot of UIs, like a lot of you would say they're end user products. We actually go to code only when we need things to be dynamic. Like, to give you an example, right? Like, I can deploy on AWS with 2 clicks a website. I can also programmatically deploy it, right? If I wanted to do pre-build stuff and then charge a client, right? And then the client pays me, I pre-build things, and then I use AWS API to deploy the website there. So there's both options, and technical people will probably use both, and the
Okay.
consumers will probably just use the chat version.
Okay. So then you'll have some sort of like the equivalent of ChatGPT, or kind of sort of a Telegram account or Telegram bot or something like that, and that's how you would kind of, as a starting point, how you would interface with the DEGA protocol.
That's correct. Yeah.
Interesting. I like that. That's interesting.
Yeah, and we're going to plug in with other APIs as well, so you can do stuff like, find your target audience, right? Write a message for them and send them, hey, do you want to pay for this? And then directly send them the crypto invoice. They can pay with crypto or with some of our partner fiat on and off ramps. And then you can just receive your money in stable coins and so forth. So kind of like bringing down the barriers of all of this vision and potential of where blockchain will take us, right? In my opinion, we should have been there already, but
Yeah.
we kind of just been making products for ourselves. Like I go out there, I'm a crypto dev, and I make crypto products for crypto people, right? Not for
Yeah.
the average consumer.
Yeah, it's good for us since we're building it now and we're trying to fix those problems. It creates a lot of opportunity for us. But yes, people have been building largely for this very, very small, tight knit group. But okay, I think we're at the hour mark now. So I guess if there's any questions from the Telegram chat, we can sort of ask some of those questions. I don't see any other questions in there right now. But if we don't get any questions in a minute, then thank you very much. Okay, there is a question, or at least somebody is writing something. Special computing. No, that doesn't mean anything. All right.
I think they're referring to Apple's spatial computing announcement, right? So because everybody's excited about.
Did I read it wrong? Special. No, I read it wrong. No, it is.
No,
spatial.
you read
Yes.
it.
I read it wrong. Spatial computing. Yeah. So
Yeah.
So I guess DEGA will come out about the same time that Apple's Vision Pro comes out.
That is correct, right? And one of the key things for our industry to be able to leverage those experiences is we need a new set of frameworks to be able to integrate those large data models, right? While retaining the good things about blockchain, right? So scalability definitely plays a role there, and some of our partners that I'm in conversation with I would love to say their names, but I can't yet are providing those services like GPUs as a service, storage as a service. So what we're going to do is like, we're not going to build everything for everybody out there, because some of you out there might be saying, you know, these guys are crazy, they're taking on too much. We're not going to build everything. We're going to integrate as many open source components as we can, and as many open services as we can as well, right? What we won't be doing is integrating systems that are like tie you up, right? That you can only use their system and you can never move out of it, right? We want open systems. Vendor locking is what we don't want. So yeah, I mean, everybody should charge for what they do. So obviously you're going to pay for the services you use, but you can choose to exit that vendor and go to another one. That's what we definitely, it's a core part of our philosophy. So yeah, so we'll be building out those APIs, and with DEGA Layer 2s, you'll be able to pay for those services and get paid for the things that you build there more efficiently, right?
So somebody asked, what is this video chat about? This is a kind of a first. We haven't done this before. To talk to some of the companies that we and people that we have been working with that have a relationship with MELD. And the first attempt here is with Carlos and DEGA, largely because we've been working with each other for the past more than, I think, almost 18 months now. We've known each other since Carlos was at IOG. And I've been advising DEGA for a long time because I really like his ambition level, and I like the idea of him solving some of these bigger infrastructure problems because we've been seeing them ourselves at MELD. And I have strong opinions about them. And also because Carlos has been advising us in regards to how to take the sort of MELD vision onto the EVM side. So this is more of a first time video AMA to have a conversation about that. If you guys have some thoughts or comments about it, that would be great. We're more than happy to sort of hear them and take them into account next time we do one of these video chats. I think we will probably be doing a bunch more of these. I like the format. I think it really works really well. And I think it makes it brings us a lot closer when it comes to answering these questions and talking to the Telegram community.
Yeah, I mean, I was getting tired of typing so much in those chat AMAs.
I
don't know how you did it, but I was just
I type
running
fast.
here.
I'm a super fast typer, so I've got no problem with it. I just can't spell. But yeah, okay. Thank you very much, Carlos. I appreciate it. Thanks everybody for being here, and any feedback would be very, very valuable. So go check out DEGA. They are super, super cool, and we're going to have a close relationship. DEGA you'll be able to participate in the ISPO for DEGA in the MELD app. and we will continue to be working close together for the coming years. Thanks.
Yeah, for anybody looking for us in Telegram, just the group is DEGA-org, right? DEGA.org, or I mean DEGA-org, or you can also go to our website, and from there you can go to our channels, which is DEGA.org, right? DEGA.org.
Great.
Oh, thank you, Ken. Thank you, Ken, for this time.